organization, Cyber Labs, Cyber Police Station in Maharashtra State. He is presently working on development of integrated cyber environment for Maharashtra State through cyber security project. He is also part of team building of Maharashtra Computer Emergency Response Team. He was the part of cyber security delegation of India to Israel in 2016. Solutions for predicting the law and order of crime mapping. He is also involved to develop anti-piracy software solutions. He is a Chevening Cybersecurity Fellow of UK, and during his fellowship in 2016, he has presented research paper on identifying emerging cybersecurity challenges from national security perspectives. He is an international visitor leadership program fellow of 2019 for promoting cybersecurity of United States. In the US Department of State's Premier Professional Exchange Program, he offers current and emerging international readers the opportunity to experience the richness and diversities of American political, economical, social, and cultural life through carefully designed fellowship programs. He has a vast experience of crime investigation, supervision, and detection. He has worked in economic offences wings of Mumbai Police and unearthed many scams and investigated many sensitive cases. He has experience of leading teams in large and complex police securities arrangements for big events. His expertise and experience is in the field of investigation of complex cyber economic crimes. He has willingness taken up extremely challenging assignments in hit areas and communal sensitive places and successfully completed it. He has worked in communal riot sensitive areas and established communal harmony within the citizen-friendly community policing initiatives. During his assignment in policing, he has maintained law and order, ensured preventive and reduction of crime, and carried out investigation and supervision of serious crimes. Presently, he is also looking after the unit with a mandate to prevent atrocity against women. He is also capable in capacity building efforts for cyber security and cyber crime investigation for Maharashtra Police. He is conducting training courses on scientific investigation, cyber investigation, mobile and forensic management, gender sensitization, and prevention of atrocities against women. Please welcome Dr. Balsingh Rajput. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, Namaskar. I'm Balsingh Rajput. Thank you, Amit Karve Saab, for your introduction. And first of all, let me thank Bhagwat Madam and all the Rotarians who decided to call me for this lecture. Thank you very much. Another apologies for the visuals because I am at airport and had some personal difficulties. So you please bear me for this kind of visuals sitting in a waiting room and giving a lecture. Extremely sorry for such kind of thing. Let me begin that. Okay, because I had committed to Bhagwat ma'am that I will do the lecture at any cost. I have not brought the kind of slides or presentation. I will give the details of the cyber crimes in specifically 4 to 5 cyber crimes that you will understand that what kind of crimes that are happening. First of all, let us understand what the cyberspace is, how it operates, and then we'll move that what kind of adversaries or who are the threat vectors that are actually there, who are doing some kind of activities. So first of all, I will try to give a glimpse that what the cyberspace is. Normally we call word cyber and we don't understand what that word cyber means. But This word is basically a word taken from novel. It's not a scientific word, but it's a word taken from a novel, and it talks about something that is virtual. Uh, in a novel of 1984, that novel basically is. So extremely sorry. Now we'll understand how the cyberspace is constructed. Cyberspace is a layered space. Most of the engineers will understand that how it is formed. It's a 6-layer space. The UK government department, through its strategy department of US Defense Forces, they have uh, conceptualize the cyberspace into 6 layers. First layer is a physical layer where we live, we interconnect the society, that people talk to each other. Is the first layer. Second layer is the network layer. The network layer is the layer in which the people are basically networked. So our network is network of humans, but the another network is the network plus the devices. That is the first layer. Second layer. Third layer is the personas or the virtual identities that we create. Virtual identities that we create. Maybe there may physically one person, but it may have 10 to 15 different virtual identities. These virtual identities is the third layer. The fourth layer is the interconnection of these virtual identities. The interconnection of virtual identities may be by different applications, just like in social media applications that are there on the web, uh, on the internet, or maybe through different applications that are limited maybe to your organization, limited to maybe to some kind of uh, organizational or maybe sectional, regional kind of networks. So that is the fourth kind of uh, layer. The fifth layer is the data or the content that we are exchanging between these personas. That is the fifth layer. And sixth layer is the interconnectivity or the kind of network that these all personas through their content plays. So that what we call in kind of a knowledge created in our society, such kind of a knowledge, interpersonal knowledge, or interpersonal network knowledge, and the we can say a cognitive kind of layer that is created virtually, is that the sixth layer. So this is all we consider as a cyberspace. Now, what happens in this cyberspace? We are physically known to each other. We know people how live, how they are connected to each other, where they live. This is their physical addresses. You how to identify people physically. But in the criminals think in a different way. Criminals think that you can create 1,000 personas, and that 1,000 personas basically can't be related back or tracked back or attributed back to you. Because why? Because there is, we have to consider the characteristics of the cyberspace. The characteristics of the cyberspace is that first and foremost it provides speed and connectivity. So you can connect to anybody who is available on internet, connected on internet through any device. So you can devise that applications and you can connect. If you can't connect, even you can penetrate their networks even though he is not connecting to you. So that is the first characteristic. Second is the speed at which we interact over the internet. And that is a boon to the cyber criminals, because they don't have to wait. There is no gestation period. There is no time required to execute anything. You can immediately execute it. Second. Third is the anonymity that provides. The internet, or we can call the kind of network designed for internet, this IP protocol, that it provides anonymity, and that anonymity is a boon for criminals. Yeah, it is a basic feature because to provide the freedom, privacy, and kind of ease to the people on the internet, it has been created. But same way, it has been exploited by the criminals. This is the anonymity, and the fourth one is the what we call it the cost that is required for a connection, cost required for committing a crime. In physical world, we require much cost to commit, because suppose I have to commit a robbery in Pune, I have to come to Pune, I have to travel, I have to arrange all kind of logistics there, all kind of paraphernalia there, and then only I will be able to commit a robbery there. But on internet or in cyberspace, all that is not required. The cost of committing a crime and the returns from the crime are too high. So cost is less, returns are high. So people tempt, most of the younger generation, and the amateurly tempt to get more money, because everyone needs money and that is easy money. So people tend to do such kind of crime. So due to the factor that cost required to commit a crime and the returns from it is very high and cost is very less. And the last thing that is slightly academic is the space-time conundrum. You don't have to be there to commit a crime. You can commit it anonymously from sitting anywhere else in the world. So these are the six kind of, I will say, the characteristics that force people or that are the allurement to the people to commit such kind of crimes. Now, understanding the cyberspace and its characteristics, we will move forward to understand how the criminals, who are the criminals. Is it only the learned people that are the criminals? And then we will go forward to understand what are the crimes. So what do you think, who are the criminals? Criminals are not much learned people and PhD holders uh, and the engineers. It's not like that, or it's not only the hardened criminals. If you see, I will just give a glimpse of the hotspots in India. Can you understand the hotspot in India for the most of the crimes, cyber crimes? One is Jamtara. Jamtara is located in Jharkhand. So Jharkhand is the remotest area in Jharkhand. Second is a Bharatpur. Bharatpur is a district in Rajasthan, which is the remotest and a backward district. Then you go to the Noida, in a place near Noida. That is also yeah, it's urban, but there they are located. Then somewhere West Bengal, nearing the Bangladesh. These are the some of the districts where the hotspots are, and it's not all hotspots that are. Uh, so these are the hotspots. From that we can understand the background of the people. The background of all the criminals is simple. You first, from the background, one thing we can infer is that first thing that is required is the intention to commit a crime. It's not the knowledge, but it's the skill set and intent. So if you have intent, and if you have a skill, and third, if you are connected, you can commit a crime. So I studied in my PhD also, that I studied data from 2002 to 2020, and I found that the 98% of criminals are Indians in India. Only 2% criminals are from abroad. First thing. Second thing is that the most of the criminals are male. 96% criminals in the cyber world that we found in India are male. So we can say it that it's a male dominated phenomenon kind of crime. Third thing, that out of, suppose from 2002 to 2016, that 15 years, 60% of the crimes were committed only for illegal gain or economical benefits. That means that these crimes are mainly committed for economical gains. The second largest chunk of crimes was of crimes related to women and children, exploitation of children, exploitation of women on online platforms. That was the second type of crime. These were the 30% of the total crimes, and the rest of the crimes are related to kind of we say that the character assassination in political parlance, and the kind of morphing and other kind of crimes. These are not the mainstream of the crimes. Mainstream crimes are economic crimes, and second is the crimes related to uh, women and children. So these are the kind of crimes. Third thing that I understood about the cyber crimes is that what is the background of the criminals. So you will be astonished that from 2002 to 2016, what data I studied from NCRB, only 10% of the criminals are, I can say, higher educated or the master or postgraduate degree. Most of the criminals are 12th fail, 10th fail, or the a degree holder kind of, I think, not only from the technology but any kind of degree. So you can understand that it is not the highly educated people, they are the criminals, but normal people who are not getting chances, who are not getting chance for their skills, they are also turning to be criminals. So these we can understand, these are the criminals. So criminals are not are from outside India, they are from here, they are the same people, they are the people who are not much educated, but they have intention and they have a skill set to commit a crime, and third, to courage to commit such kind of crime. Now we'll move forward to understand what kind of crimes are there. So first of all, I will concentrate, I will not give unseen, unheard and unspoken kind of crimes. That is the area of Ritesh, and I think so Ritesh will give justice to these three kind of crimes. I will mostly tell you 10 crimes that are mostly happening in India, and that we as an businessman, as an professional, as an a citizen or individual in the society, we should have a concern for. These 10 crimes, first I will tell you is a phishing. Phishing is the simplest. Everyone must have encountered such kind of crime, and that is the most important crime that is happening in India. Out of all the crimes, the first important and the most important crime is phishing. Very simple. You might have received a call for getting OTP. You might have received a call for a kind of your ATM is having problem, so you share the ATM card number and the PIN. You might have received for bank uh, uh, document KYC, and then they ask for bank number and details of your password, online banking password, and all these things. So these frauds are called phishing frauds. Phishing is simple. That means you are phishing a person, waiting with allurement, that you allure something, you deceive him and try to get that information from a victim. So these frauds are mainly committed to the users, the first time users who are using mobile and they are not well acquainted with the financial system. They, or we can say virtual financial system, or the e-payment and payment gateways. They are not much much sensitized about these things. Second, the housewomen and those who are not having much, we can say, awareness about financial systems. Third, children or first time users, just we can first time users from the rural areas. These are the targets. There are some people who are much learned and also into the banking system, but due to maybe sometimes they may slip, they may, due to their busy schedule, sometimes they give information. I have seen many businessmen and CEOs and MDs have shared their details. It was, they told me it was ridiculous. It was not, uh, he might not have given anyway, but due to his busy schedule, and he just in a regular way of affair, he shared, understanding that it may be a true or genuine call from the bank. So if you see, out of 100, the 50 crimes are from this phishing. Very simple. People may ask for KYC, people may ask for your bank details, they may ask for OTP, they may ask for the kind of ATM queries, or now the e-wallet or Paytm queries. They ask that your Paytm is not working, you need to have a re-KYC and all these things, all that stuff they will ask. And they only tend to give PIN or the OTP. These are the two things. How they get information about your banking cards or banking data, that is important, because most of the, just like telecom services players or the banks, uh, they share the third data with the third parties, and somewhere it is leaked. So you might have heard that the breaches happens regularly. Yahoo is breached, Google breached, this bank breached, that bank breached, Mastercard breach. So what happens to that breach data? This breach data used again after because there are you can say in a dark market or in a dark web, there are traders of data, and these people trade this data, and then the criminals purchase this data and then commit the frauds like phishing. Second, we'll go for business email compromise, because most of the Rotarians here from Pune are businessmen and having their professions, individual service related professions, maybe industry, manufacturing, what your professions you are in that. You have a hierarchy in your office. You may be MD, CEO, you have a CFO and all these things. And normally to have a ease in your banking transactions, you give instructions through mail, through phone, and you have a defined kind of structure and kind of language that you use in your official parlance. So what happens? The once you are because these are high net worth individuals are only targeted in business email compromise. This is very specific, very important for the professionals like you. Once suppose you have a chartered accountant firm, or you are a lawyer, or maybe you are having a small manufacturing unit, and normally you send a mail to CFO or call them and say that okay, pay this money to XYZ person. That mail originates from your mail ID and goes to the CFO, and CFO then immediately process it and says that okay, give it. Sometimes you say okay, without mail also, just a call, give them money. So that are set procedures, and people also don't. If CEO is calling, if the MD is calling, these guys normally don't ask a second question. But that is only exploited. This vulnerability exploited. They come into your system, study your system for 1 month, 2 months, study all the emails, how the emails are originated. Then the same email, which is your email, like that email is created. The email then all your language that is copied, and a mail is sent that please this much money be debited to that account. And that amount is big, like maybe 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. People have lost 3, 3, 4 million rupees depending upon what their volume of transaction of that company. So, and normally the CFO don't see there is just a minor change in the email ID. Instead of E there is A, or I there is double E. So like that. So, and just they see and say, oh, it's mail from AMD, and they uh, credit the money to that account. So this has happened. This is a business email compromise, and many businesses are falling prey to it. They have lost money in millions of dollars. So you also be cautious when you are doing the kind of transactions through your official organization or through your organizations. Always pay attention to who is sending email, what the email is, what the correct email is, and have a two-factor kind of authentication how the email have. So always give a call, ensure, talk to in person and confirm, then only you give a money, otherwise don't. Third one is now it's not common, but it has become common due to some kind of infrastructural changes. Now SIMs are being is on a transformation range. Earlier it was a big SIM, now become a micro SIM, now it came a mini SIM, then now it is eSIM. So always there is a change in telecom industry, particularly in SIM cases. So now the criminals are targeting high net worth individuals. They are getting their mobile numbers, they are calling them, getting the details of your mobile number and the operator, and then they are targeting that person, sending an email, getting all kind of details like your KYC details. Once they have KYC details, then in remote places like in Jamtara and all these places, they are cloning your SIM. That means they are getting a new SIM from a vendor, giving all your documents, and then they call you and ask you, oh, please switch off your mobile for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or maybe you receive a call, and then uh, after that call, your SIM stops operating. So that is a call from maybe telecom service provider, because you had placed a request from your email ID, seems to be email ID, because once they receive all your KYC, they create a profile of you and they send that profile to the internet service provider or maybe telecom service provider, and then they give a call for SIM change. and they get a new SIM, and then your old SIM stops operating. Then they have all whatever bank you are using, they start the transactions, and OTP comes on that SIM, and then they uh, loot your amount. And such things has happened. You might have, there is a stellar, I can say, example from Mumbai, that a businessman lost 1 crore 75 lakh rupees in one night, uh, due to the scenes of fraud. So this is a third kind of fraud that I will say that from a professional, professionals like you is very important. Fourth one is a kind of fraud that is related to the matrimonial kind of frauds. So matrimonial fraud, because you all are now having some matrimonial sites. Matrimonial sites are the third most important things uh, has to be seen, because here most of the exploited people are women or the girls who are of the age of 25 to 40 exploited. So it's a simple trick that uh, once you post your details, all your choices and your things, what you require, what you don't require, profile, and create the profiles which will suit your choices, 10 to 15 profiles prepared by the same conman, and then they give you the request that I am interested. So you get the moment you register it and you get 10 to 15 requests, then you feel that, oh, you may be so beautiful or you may be in much demand, but it's not the case. The case is that you have been targeted by the conmans, and the same conman, or maybe 2 to 3 conmans, and they are sending you requests. Out of that 10 to 15 profiles, you may reject 10, but you are still into their garb only. And then you start chatting with them, and then they will give you some kind of allurements, like they will send a gift from London, they will give their profile that they are working in such countries, and they have a kind of gift for you, a diamond ring, they care for you, and they will send, and then the call will come from customs, call will come from RBI, call will come from the airport, call will come from the shipment office. So these are same people with a uh, different kind of you. They have a team of one girl, 2 3 boys, and then they start calling you, and they call you that you have such and such a diamond ring of such and such amount, and you have to pay excise, you have to pay custom, otherwise you will be no, you will have to face all the criminal cases. And the people are new people, and the person who is in contact with you says that, oh, okay, I was not knowing, is I'm living abroad, and so I was not knowing the procedures here. And then they will just keep on talking, and you make you believe that, okay, that is true. And the moment you pay the money, you come to know after 2 days that, oh, I was cheated. You will not believe. I have seen a IT engineer from Pune working in a big, you can say, a big company from Hinjewadi. She has lost 45 lakh rupees in I can say 8 days. And knowing all these things, she believed that guy, and mortgaged, or I can say, sold her apartment. But we can understand that, okay, you believe your partner, you believe such people, because you are in a relationship, you feel that. But these are the conmans, these are the crime syndicates, they create such kind of trust, and then elude you. These are the fourth. And then fifth, the fraud that I will seek your attention is kind of sextortion. This fraud is rampant nowadays, because in lockdown also I received many complaints. So people are sitting home and they are asking for, they are sending requests on phone, unknown people creating profiles of girls, or maybe handsome boys, handsome girls, and sending you requests that, and you feel that, oh, you are still young, and people sending you messages, you are, but it's not the case. Then the case is that they have selected you as a target, and the moment you send yes, they start chatting, then they shift the chatting to WhatsApp, and ask you to do some kind of act that is very private to you, or maybe ask you to be nude, and they also get nude. But they have such kind of videos, and then once they have their videos, they start extorting you. that we have such and such videos, such and such photos which are intimate to you and will make you, you know, run from post to pillar, will disturb your family, and then you get disturbed and you pay money. There are people who have paid lots of money to such kind of convents through Bitcoin. So please be aware. These are the important five frauds. I think so I have crossed the time. Please, someone, if time is keeping, just let me know if I have crossed my time. uh, yeah, Vaishali ma'am, who's,
I yes, Balsing, sir, what you can do is you can complete the point you're making.
okay,
Uh,
yeah, and then we'll complete it. Okay.
and then maybe
So
because we have a few questions also coming in for you, so we can have
yeah,
time
that
for
will
that.
be better. Yeah, I will request the audience to ask me question now only, because I will be then getting off, because uh, it's not proper.
Yes, sir. Some
So
of the questions
uh,
have come in the chat. I'll pick them up.
yeah, yeah. So these are the sextortion kind of fraud, and you will not believe who are the victims. Victims are the children of the age group of 14 to 20. Most of the girls who are on Instagram, the minor girls who are on Instagram, they get scared the moment they tell that we will approach your parent. I have your photograph, I have your nude photograph, I will approach. You will not believe. Yes, 4 days before, Mumbai police have arrested a guy who had exploited such kind of, you know, girls, minor 8 years to 14 years of girls, means in that range, more than 200. You will not believe, on Instagram. So who are the victims? Victims in sextortion cases are not big professionals or big businessmen. Yeah, there are few, but most of the children of the age group of 8 to 18 are prey, are most prone to this kind of sextortion cases. And I will request you to always talk to your children about these young girls and boys. You should talk to them. So these, I will restrain myself to have these five cases. Had it been the case that it's a special seminar or having more time, then I could have given you 10 to 15 different type of crimes. Due to paucity of time and due to this non-congenial kind of environment here on airport, I will restrain myself to stop here. Bhagwat ma'am, I will request you to please, uh,
Thank you.
if there is
Thank
any
you.
questions, I will answer. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. So first things first, almost all of the participants have thanked you that in spite of your personal difficulty, you could log in from the airport and that you could take out your time to address everybody. I've seen a lot of comments in the chat saying that they found this talk very, very useful, and you have touched upon all the relevant crimes that affect normal people, layman users, and also businessmen. So it's very helpful for all of them to know. So I have a few questions. There were some questions which were submitted at the time of registration itself, and there are some questions which are come on the chat. So I'll go one by one. So the first question was that in case anyone becomes a victim of a cybercrime, what is the procedure for reporting the crime?
Yeah, yeah, ma'am. A very important question. I missed to tell all of you that what is the redressal mechanism for the victims. Government of India, Government of Maharashtra are very proactive, and they have created a online reporting portal. You may note down, it's www.cybercrime, cybercrime .gov.in. This is a online portal. 24 hours you can register complaints here. You don't have to worry about jurisdiction. You don't have to worry about what the proofs are and who will handle that case. Everything, the moment you register through email or phone number, all the updates about your case, where it is going, which jurisdiction it is being handled, and who is the officer, all that is informed to you. So this is an online platform. Within 36 hours, the case is decided whether to go for a case or reject your request. That all is decided. So you can go there. Then there is another website, that is www.reportphishing.in. It's created for phishing. So the moment you are getting calls for such kind of things, for sharing OTP and all, but you are not deceived for any kind of money, or you are not lost money, still you have to, if you inform that, then we'll be able to ban such numbers. So you can also report to this website also. These are two. And third thing is that is always there, that you can go to the nearest police station, or in Pune there is a special cyber police station that is developed very well, is at Shivaji Nagar. You can go there, the Shivaji Nagar police ground, you can go there and register your complaint. Is one of the best police station in Maharashtra. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. That's absolutely relevant information, and I'm sure people actually are taking notes about where to report and what to do. So the next question is, in fact, you also mentioned about Jamtara and Bharatpur and how these gangs operate from for payment frauds. What are the chances of people actually recovering money when we have seen that?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, but it depends upon the time and how, when you report. Suppose the golden hour for retrieving money is first 5 to 6 hours, because earlier transferring money from one account to another account, from one area to another area was difficult. But with the you can say unified payment interface, or the e-wallets, now money takes 5 to 6 hops within first half an hour. So it's become difficult. Still, we are able to manage most of the cases. Out of 100 cases, in 30 cases, we are able to stop money. Not all, but whatever money that is there in the account of a criminal or a con man left, because they normally hop the money from one to, normally there are 3 hops of accounts, and then they withdraw through ATM. But it requires nearly 6 to 10 hours to do them, because they also have to find the ATM and they have designated ATMs. So if you report within a golden hour of 3 hours, we are most probably is able to stop the money. But beyond that, then it becomes difficult. If that account of a conman is there, we trace, and if the money is there, then we do a debit freeze, and and then it requires a time to give back your money.
Thank you, sir. Again, this golden hour is again a very important time frame that you've said. And say the reporting happens after the golden hour. Have you seen in your experience that through the RBI ombudsman or nowadays bank policies that they do get a refund?
Yeah, sure, ma'am. There is a circular or notification by the RBI. In 2017, they have issued a notification that who is liable such. So they have said that banks are liable if the customer is cheated without his knowledge, without his any kind of act. He has not shared a OTP, he has not shared any bank details, and he's deceived, or he's defrauded. Then it's a liability of the banks. The liability that RBI has fixed till 1 lakh rupees, but then you have to report your complaint to the grievance redressal portal of the bank and to the banking ombudsman, and they decide cases as a quasi judicial cases. And uh, 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 till that case is decided, we can say the money is shown in your account, you can't withdraw. But once you win the case, you get money back. Or if you lost the case, because that is decided by the grievance redressal officer, if you have to prove that you have not shared any kind of information. But in most of the cases, 60 to 75% of the cases, people get money back from the bank if they have not committed any kind of mistake or shared the information.
Thank you, sir. Sir, so there are two more related questions to payment frauds, because I think payment frauds is something that for people, it's perhaps most important right now. So SIM cloning, relating to SIM cloning, what are the precautions one can take so that SIM cloning doesn't happen, or if it does, then what should be the next steps?
First and foremost thing, that for any kind of fraud is required about is your important credentials. So don't share your credentials. Don't give your uh, Aadhaar card, then bank card, then your driving license, all these identification cards to any Tom, Dick, Harry to go and give a Xerox. Always keep it with you. Don't share with other people. Then second, don't share your banking details with many people. Those banking details which are needed, that only you share. Second thing. Third thing, whenever you get a call from a bank, call from a call center, call from your credit manager, always verify. Don't, because I understand that you being at such a position, you have to handle many transactions at a time, but still when it comes to your personal information like PIN, like ATM card number, like debit card number, the CVC number, your date of birth, then all this information is very private to you and shall not be shared, because I can guess a password if I know your name, your wife's name, your date of birth, your place of birth, and area you are living, and what's your nickname. And I challenge most of the people, now you also start guessing what your password can be. If you know all this, there are only 10 parameters. If I know about you, then I can do through permutation combination. It requires, it's a matter of time and guess. So don't share this information. And regarding eSIMs, eSIM swap, it's about whenever you receive a call from the telecom service providers, don't give information, don't send SMSs which you don't understand. That for SIM swap you have to send a message on, suppose 123, you send a message on 123 and then it gets swapped. But always visit a gallery, make it sure. And whenever you face any kind of such a suspicious movement, always give a call and block the SIM if money is being swindled. And always keep your mobile number for public different and for banking transactions different, so that, and always share your don't share your password. And if you are having a kind of applications or a habit of writing diary and writing all the passwords in the diary, then one or two words that are common in all the passwords, never write or never keep in any wallet that two words. So that should be in your mind, so that even though people get your password, that is half. So such kind of tricks, simple tricks you may do. Yeah, that's what I want to tell.
Thank you very much, sir. In fact, to get all the information from what vast experience that you have, it perhaps even a day seminar won't be enough. And there are still a lot of
Yeah.
questions, but we all are running against time, and we also don't want to hold you up
Yeah.
from your
Yeah.
checking.
And from me to all the audience and the Rotary members and the management people of the Rotary district president and the vice president and all the honorary members, I beg pardon, or I request your apologies for not staying for a whole time in this seminar. Now I will be leaving. Thank you very much for giving me opportunity. Especially very much thanks to Vaishali Bhagwat ma'am and Ritesh. They are considerate that they are allowing me to leave the seminar. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions or if you want a direct talk, you can send me email or you can call on my number also. You are always welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll now move ahead and I pass the control back to Shashank or Ashwini, who will introduce the next speaker, please.
Vaishali, thank you so much. This is Binda Bal and I'll be introducing our next speaker.
Why don't we skip that? It will take another 5-7 minutes. Yeah,
That's so humble of you, sir.
No, the information that I want to give, I mean, I can't skip that. Let's skip the introduction. So, can I, if you don't mind?
Oh, please. Yes, it's. I
Okay.
hand it over to you then. I'll probably put it in the chat box later.
No problem. So somebody can you can Google me, Ritesh Bhatia, and just put cyber in front of it or cybercrime investigator. You will get a link, not on LinkedIn, on V4Web. You can see all my information over there. Because what is very important is, the time crunch is there. It's already 8 o'clock. So I also wouldn't like that, to hold you back. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I'll just, one of you will have to help me to tell me that if you're able to see my screen or not. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes,
Yes.
no problem.
Okay, and when I start the video also, please let me know if you're able to see the video. Now, the thing is why I'm bringing this screen is because I want to tell you that the part that I'm going to talk about is the unknown, unseen, and unheard cybercrimes. You know, so whatever Bal Singh sir also spoke about, now those are the crimes that have been happening like on a daily basis with citizens. In fact, it's unfortunate we couldn't hear the remaining 5 also. Because there are many, even if I have to start talking, there would be easily 20, 30 cyber crimes which happen on a daily basis. But I'm going to stick to some of the unknown, unseen, and unheard cyber crimes for the only reason because, you know, tomorrow when you come to know that this is like happening, something like that is happening, you'll be able to relate it to this particular thing, what I'm going to show. So first I'm starting with something called as deep fakes. So let's see what deep fakes are, how they are becoming a bigger threat.
We're entering
an. Hear the audio of Barack Obama?
Yes.
Okay, then I start again.
We're entering an era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time, even if they would never say those things. So, for instance, they could have me say things like, I don't know, Killmonger was right, or Ben Carson is in the sunken place, or, how about this, simply, President Trump is a total and complete dipshit. Now, you see, I would never say these things, at least not in a public address, but someone else would. Someone like Jordan Peele. This is a dangerous time. Moving forward, we need to be more vigilant with what we trust from the internet. That's a time when we need to rely on trusted news sources. It may sound basic, but how we move forward in the age of information is going to be the difference between whether we survive or whether we become some kind of fucked up dystopia. Thank you. And stay woke, bitches.
So friends, here's was something as I would say as the most emerging cyber threat. You know, we speak about ransomwares and we speak about phishing and credit card frauds and debit card frauds, but this is deep fakes. Do you really think that was Barack Obama speaking? Of course, it was Barack Obama. It was his face. Wasn't the voice also of his? It was his voice. But just imagine the way it has been like superimposed, and this is all done by the machines. Literally, this is done by the AI base. AI is artificial intelligence. Using artificial intelligence machines, we are able to do this. So if you ask me what is the threat, the bigger threat, the main threat is that tomorrow that the videos you will see, okay, which you think would be like kind of unbelievable, okay, that, oh, how could this particular person say it? And, you know, how can he say it? You would actually feel, no, in fact, instead of being unbelievable, you will say, no, it's him. It's a believable thing. Amitabh Bachchan is saying something which he shouldn't be saying. But probably it's not he who is saying. It's somebody else who's saying it, okay? But the voice is his, the sound is his, the face is his. And so just imagine tomorrow you have like a news anchor, somebody who's like yelling and shouting all the time at his 9 o'clock debates, and suddenly you find him to be like very sober and speaking so softly and all. That day, please understand it is a deep fake. It can't be that man for sure. So this is, let me show you another example of what is deep fake.
Here's how to make the perfect pour-over coffee. First,
this is Jane.
Water to 200 degrees.
Jane is a deep fake. Deepfakes are realistic AI-generated videos that show real people doing and saying fictional things. Current deepfake detection methods can identify telltale signs like boundary artifacts, shadow inconsistency.
So I hope now you've clearly understood what like a deep fake it is. So it is all about like somebody else is saying, I mean, a person is there who's saying and doing things which is actually not. He's not. So, do you think deepfakes has already come into India? Yes. Few years back, a very, very popular journalist, okay, that was the first ever case of deepfake in India. Her entire face was morphed. Okay, I mean, it was like using deepfake. A pornographic video was created of her. She has given a lot many interviews about it, and initially people weren't able to even believe it that something like that could have happened. Everybody said, no, it is this journalist only. But then, of course, she had to contact a lot of experts and all, and that's the reason everyone came to know. I mean, the media tried to propagate it that, look, this is not her, this is like a deep fake. So such is the threat. Even earlier in this year, before the Delhi elections, if you must have seen, the BJP head, Manoj Tiwari, the BJP head of Delhi, there was a deep fake video created of him because that person could speak only and only in Hindi. But another video of him was created. The lip movements are his, the voice is his, the sound is his, but he's not said that. Somebody else has said it for him. And he created a deepfake for himself. Of course, so the deepfakes could be used for positive things also. And then he created the deepfake for himself, and he spoke in English. He spoke in Haryanvi. He spoke in 3 different languages. So what is the point? The point is that whatever you're going to see, it's going to be like really, you just cannot believe it. As of now, if you see what is the era we are in, what we see on the news, we can't believe. What we read on the Twitter or on the Facebook or on the WhatsApp, we can't believe. Okay. What we hear also is something that we can't believe. Now, when I'm talking about hearing, let me take you to another example. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Somebody please tell me. Yeah. Okay. Now, since we are talking about hearing, so I'm talking to you about now the second unheard or unseen cybercrime. Imagine $243,000 lost. And this is especially for the company people and all the CEOs and people having, if you see over here, $243,000 lost. How? The modus operandi was very simple. A CEO who's sitting in the UK gets a call from his boss. Now the boss is in Germany. He's a German. And he tells him, look, I want you to transfer $243,000 to some vendor who is in Hungary. So this CEO of the UK transfers the $243,000 over there into Hungary. Now, later on, they find out that the boss had never called. And when this CEO, the UK CEO, was questioned, he said, no, it was him. It was his accent. And he also, he said, I could recognize the melody also in his voice. So what had happened? So the thing is, in the artificial intelligence machine, a voice sample of the German boss was taken. Now you can understand voice samples will be available anywhere. Let's say if we are recording this session, my voice is already there. Bal Singh sir's voice is there. Advocate Vaishali Bhagwat's voice is already there. I just need a voice of, let's say, 2 minutes or 5 minutes of voice. I feed that into the AI-based machine. The AI is now able to kind of do a post-mortem on the entire voice, and it knows that if this person has to say the word A, how will he say? How will he say B? How will he say the word ball? How will he say the word cat or whatever? And now it is able to say anything. So all you need to do is just type a script in it, and this machine will read out everything in the voice of that person. So for example, let's take up the video of anybody which is available on YouTube. You know, let's take for example, Vaishali Bhagwat's videos. There are so many videos available on her YouTube where she's given talks and all those kind of things. I just take that video, okay, I separate the sound and the video in it. I feed the sound into my AI machine, okay, and then I write a script. And then the machine will give it an output. It will say things that I have typed, but in the voice of Advocate Bhagwat. So this is now something that so the first thing what we saw was, you just can't believe what you see. You just can't believe what you hear also. So we got to be extremely careful about these things. And you will say, oh, this looks like a Black Mirror episode, or this happens. No, in fact, I had actually kind of predicted that something like this AI by voice and all, would be like, rampant in even in 2020. So up till now, there are only 3 cases, that too because of the COVID and all that. But I'm telling you, by 2021, this will become like any other common phenomena. Like, for example, earlier we had something called as morphing. So now, I will need your permission, all of you, to allow me to use and show certain words which could be a little obscene. I mean, they are a bit obscene, but I think if I don't show you, I won't be doing justice to this particular talk. So, Vaishali ma'am, I hope I have your
Please
consent.
Go ahead, Ritesh. We won't sue you, we promise.
Okay, great. Fine. I know a good lawyer, in case even if you sue me. Pune-based lawyer. Okay. So, earlier there were days of morphing. What was morphing? You take the face of one particular person, and then what do? You put it on the body of another, on a nude body, right? But you could make it out because, let's say my face is there, it's dark, it's heavy. Now you put it on a slim guy who's fair and all, you'll easily say it is there. And then you will say, oh, I'll have to go find out somebody who looks like Ritesh Bhatia, who's got like a big belly and whatever, and is heavy and dark. But now, and that would also require good image editing skills, especially like Photoshop and all. But friends, now it's a matter of 20 seconds. In a matter of 20 seconds, okay, the artificial intelligence machines, and these are rampant. This is already happening quite a lot, can take the entire body, and instead of taking the head and putting it on the other person, the machines are able to find out that on that body, which is the skin and which are the clothes. The moment it knows that, okay, these are the clothes, it just removes those clothes digitally. It just removes the clothes digitally. So, for example, here I go. If you see what's happened over here, earlier in the case of morphing, the background would also change. But please focus over here, the sofa, this thing, everything all over here. Okay. So in a matter of 20 seconds, all the clothes have been removed. And why are we, and do you know how easy was it for the AI machine to get so many images? Thanks to the bikini challenge. You had something like a hashtag bikini challenge. And because of that, all this has happened. So now if you ask me, what about the sari challenge and all? Why not? Honestly, I find that to be something that's very, very risky. The sari challenge and all. Because what are we doing over here as far as the sari challenge is concerned? The machine is now trained to remove small pieces of clothes, I mean minimum, because it, in a bikini, you don't have. Now the machine wants to go to the next level. It says, now what could be the next level? It says, can I remove more clothes from the body? I mean, somebody wearing so much. So maybe somebody came up with an idea that let's do a hashtag sari challenge. So please remember, if that there is always something that is like, there is a motive. There is always a motive behind these challenges. If you are really not aware about it, go and watch Social Dilemma on Netflix. I think that is something, something it's compulsory for you to watch. I mean, it should be made mandatory. The way, we have to see all those smoking and the drinking can cause this and smoking can cause problem. I think the social dilemma is something that again.
So Ritesh, just for you to know, we have extended the program by another 20 odd minutes. So you have time, and I'll just give you a signal, say 5 minutes before the time is up, so that we can take questions.
Okay. 1 second. I'm just. So here we spoke about deep fakes. We spoke about deep voices, or the fake voices, AI-based fake voices. We spoke about the deep nudes also. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on this. The future, and we already have the drones that are there, and they have started delivering also. And at many places, like for example, no wedding nowadays is complete without a drone also. And here is an era where the drone swarms will be there. So the next attack that we are going to see, it has already happened, let's say in the Saudi Aramco and where, in the Gulf and all that. So these are the drone swarms that I'm talking about. I don't want to go too technical into it. Then, now since we also spoke about the dark side of the internet, please let me tell you, the dark net or the dark web, as it is popularly known as. No, you cannot like just go on the dark web, using a Chrome browser or something. You need a Tor browser, and over there. So this is very important that we understand that a lot of like drugs are being available for our youngsters, for the teenagers, and then they know a lot. Let me also tell you that when that as a dark researcher, the first time when I entered into dark web, it was a 16-year-old boy who guided me how to get into the dark web and where to find the drugs. So just imagine, these are the people who know a lot about it. Now, we were talking about the credit and the debit cards. Now, Bal Singh sir also told you that you don't share your OTP, don't share your PIN, and all those kind of things. But I will tell you that's really not a solution. I mean, why? Because have you ever noticed that when you go abroad or when you shop online on an international website, it doesn't ask you for any OTP or PIN? Am I right? It is just not going to ask you that, which means what? All I need is a photograph, or I just need to know your 16-digit card number, which is there on the front of the card, the expiry date, and at the back is the CVV. So it's so simple for me. Let's say you have gone into a restaurant, by mistake you hand out of your card, or you are standing at, let's say, in some shopping mall, and you are at standing at the cashier. There is already a big bench kind of a thing over the cashier. You give your credit card, and let's say you're looking here and there, and immediately the cashier can actually take a photocopy of your card front or back, or even can take a picture using his mobile phone. And now they can go and shop online. And this is exactly the same thing that happened with one of my clients who's lost 8.13 lakhs because somebody took his card picture of the front and back and then went and shopped online. The screen that you're seeing over here is of a dark web. Over here, this particular person is selling the database. Like he's telling you that I can give you MasterCard, which is of a world level, which is a credit card, and all these cards are of Indian people, and it's only for $100. He's just not asking for one card, but he's going to give you like a lot many cards also if you want. And these people also give you some samples of the cards. You can have RuPay cards, you can have Visa cards. So how did these cards come up over here? there have been a lot many data breaches. It can be the breach at the bank's end, or it could be the breach. You went onto some particular website and you entered your credit card details or debit card details, and that time your card details were skimmed. Okay, so this is also called as form jacking or web skimming. You know, your card details were skimmed. Now your question will be, okay, if the card is with me, I don't want to share my details. What do I do to protect myself? Now, ideally, the bank should have downloaded this particular database, you know, all these cards, and they should have deactivated it. But then behind each card, a lot of money goes, besides paying these hackers for the entire database. So they aren't doing anything. In any case, they don't do much also. So they are, I mean, for the victims. So they aren't really doing anything. What we need to do is, see, friends, right now in the cyberspace now, nobody is going to really care about your security. We ourselves have to care about, you know, we have to take care of ourselves. This is like a no man's land. Nobody is bothered about you. Okay. So what we do is, in your banking, in the net banking that you have, what you really need to do is, there is an option, disable international card transactions. You can do that. Go on to your net banking. I mean, if it's HDFC or ICICI or Axis, go on to your net banking kind of thing. If you have never ever done a net banking, an international transaction, RBI has now mandated it that your international transactions will be disabled, which is a great thing. You know, of course, they woke up very late, but at least it's a great thing. But yet, what you can do is, you can still, to cross verify, go on to your, like, let's say net banking, go to your cards, select your credit or debit card, and afterwards it will show you an option. Do you want to disable international? You can say yes. Suppose if you're making some international transactions, you know, every month, like let's say you're paying to iCloud or you're paying somewhere else, what you can also do over there is, you can limit the transactions. So you can limit your transactions over there, like, you know, the value of the transactions. Like in my case, I have kept it to a maximum of 5,000 rupees per month for my international transactions. So even if something goes wrong, okay, even if something goes wrong, my maximum loss is just of 5,000. Even in case of domestic transactions. Now the bank has given me a credit card with a limit of, let's say 7 lakh rupees or let's say 10 lakh rupees. I don't shop that much. What I have done is, I have kept my limit as 20,000 rupees. Now you'll say, what about in an emergency? Fine. Even in an emergency, you can either go and increase the limit by yourself, or even if you try to make a transaction, your bank will call you saying, you tried to make a payment, but it didn't happen. Do you want to raise the amount? So you, the limit, you will say, yes, increase the limit. After my transaction, bring it back to the limit. So do that. You will say, why will the bank call? Because if you're going to, the more you spend, the more the bank will get. And hence, this is one of the very, very important things that you need to do. See, these are the other cards that are available. Now, round about like 70 lakh cards are available only from the India. And now this is a very, very old site that from an old news I'm showing up. So as of now, it is round about some 15 to 20 million of Indian debit and credit cards are all around. So I think we've reached the time and all. So, you know, I'll be happy to take questions.
So,
I had to go fast. I had to go fast because I had to take care of the time.
Thank you very much, Ritesh, for this amazing talk, and you've scared everyone enough that, you know, people are already asking questions like, should we really even participate in electronic banking, and whether all this is safe and what we're supposed to do. So in fact, even before we start asking you questions, let me also put some disclaimer, because I know Ritesh for many number of years, and you know, he will, once we start asking him questions, he will sort of say, oh, you know, nothing happens, the law is not good enough, the judiciary doesn't do anything, and all of that. So I'm going to start with a disclaimer by saying that what Ritesh has presented is reality. We all are struggling with answers, and we all know that technology will always run ahead of law. And not only India, but everyone, all countries across the world are trying to to come up with more robust legislation. They're trying to come up with international understanding on certain areas of crimes, especially when it deals with women and children, especially, you know, the nude fakes and etc. What Ritesh spoke about. Even Bal Singh sir spoke about child trafficking, child pornography, which is at a very, very massive scale. So all that is happening in the background. But the intention of today's session and to invite Ritesh was so that it's like a great eye opener as to how bad things can be. And if you do not engage in some basic safety safety steps, then you really will be at a receiving end of a lot of fraud. So with this disclaimer, I'm going to ask Ritesh a few. So let me start with some very basic questions, Ritesh. The first question being that is there, since you said that most of these crimes and frauds don't even require human intervention. I mean, these are highly sophisticated crimes, could be driven by AI and ML. So could we also say as laymen, we can tackle or ensure our safety by using some tools or some sort of software that can be used?
Okay, yes, we can do that, and let me show you the software. Again, I'm going to share the screen. I hope that's okay, because that's very important for me to show you the software. Yeah, can I just share the screen?
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah. Here's the software. It's called as a pause button. So the whole thing is, you know, what the internet has done to us is we are multitasking. We want to do things extremely fast. So what is very important that we pause. All the cases that you heard from Bal Singh sir, or you heard from me, or even the CEO who transferred 243, had he paused, had he called back the CEO, you know, because the call had come from an artificial intelligence machine and routed through Germany. Had he called, paused and thought about it, let me call the CEO back, because this is not how our company works. He needs to send me an email and all. This disaster could have been averted. Had girls like really paused before sharing their nudes to anybody, these things wouldn't be happening. If we, like, you know, really pause before giving our OTP, these things would happen. Because the thing is, we are in a generation where we really cannot believe what we see, what we hear, what others are saying. We unfortunately, and what we read also. So unfortunately, this is how things are. So the software that I wanted to talk to you was this. Just try implementing it. I'm not trying to be philosophical or anything. Just try implementing it, that whenever you get a call, whenever you get a link and a friend has sent it, okay, let me see what it is there. Hold on. Probably, do I really need to click on that? So you know, this is my tool.
An absolutely brilliant answer, Ritesh. Not only precise, but absolutely cost effective. And it will save people a lot of, not only money, but even a lot of mental and emotional.
It's free. I give it to all of you. It's free.
Thank you very much for that answer. So there is a sort of a semi-technical question which has come up, saying that is there any forensic tool available, or are there any forensic investigators or labs available who will give a report that whether a content is genuine or fake, and can that report be used in a court of law?
Yes. See, I think you're referring to deep fakes, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So as far as the deep fakes are concerned now, you know, just till like 1 year back now, even with even you and I or any one of us could like watch it and, you know, kind of say like, look, it's a deep fake kind of a thing. Of course, still, you know, when the first time you would see, like when I saw the video of that journalist first time, I said, yeah, man, it's she. But then, you know, from an investigator's eyes, we could make it out. But today, the deep fakes which are there, especially the one that you saw of Barack Obama, you can't really make it out. So there are no tools as such, but then there are forensic specialists who go into, and they are more into the video analytics of it. They are into the video images of it, and then they study it frame by frame, and they're able to find out that it's a deep fake video. So as of now, there is nothing like, there's a tool or something like that which can detect it. Facebook also started its like Facebook detection thing, but it couldn't do it. I'm happy they couldn't do it. The more they fail, the better for everyone on the earth. So no tools as of now, but I'm sure, like, in the next maybe few months, we will hear about a tool, because that is the speed with which technology is going ahead, and that is the same speed with which we need to know what is going wrong.
Thanks, Ritesh. So another question was that when should one, because Bal Singh sir said that when there is a crime, that you can report it on the phishing website, the phishing portal for reporting, or the cybercrime.gov.in, or go to the nearest police station or a cyber police station. But then what are the occasions when people need to get in touch with a cybercrime investigator? So should people privately approach a cybercrime investigator, or is it that you give services only to the prosecution or to the police authorities? How does this work?
So okay, so the things are like, if I have to talk about myself, the cases that I get are these, like, people who have either no faith in the police, or they really don't know what needs to be done, and or they have gone to the police and nothing is happening. So that is a time also when these people come to me. And in many cases, I have been like, recently you are aware about Sonakshi Sinha case also. There were 6 of them who were trolling her very badly, who were abusing her. And, so then she contacted me, and I could easily get 4 of them, So it all depends. Now, there are many who don't want to go and, like, tell their parents as such, because they have their fear that if I will go to the cops and all, this will happen. Now, the thing is, as far as any cybercrime investigator is concerned, the investigators, we can like kind of guide you. We can just make things faster for you. Now, I just recently solved another 4 cases. In all those 4 cases, I was able to get, see, the most important thing to find out if any person is, to get to that person, is if we know his mobile number. I'm not talking about the Jantara frauds and other kind of things. I'm talking about generally if somebody is harassing you or has done a fraud with you, is to get the mobile number. Now, these people are going to come on Instagram or Facebook and do, all sorts of things. And they have identities covered and everything. So here we are able to go that fast that we can get the IP address. From the IP address, we come to know the telecom operator. And once we show how we got this IP address, the police is convinced, they immediately write to the telephone operators like Jio, Vodafone, Airtel, whoever. And within 24 hours, they get all the details of the suspect. And that's how these cases like really go fast. So, if you want the cases to be going fast and all, so that is where a cybercrime investigator kind of you approach. Or you don't want to go to the cops. If it's between a company, it's within a family, and you don't want to go, maybe that is a time. But I would always say making a complaint is very important. And one thing is there which I like really don't appreciate, or I don't like it, that the women empowerment thing, we are kind of making it as like a double standard thing. Because I get so many girls calling me, but they say, sir, don't tell it to our papa. I said, why? They said, nahi, hamare community mein nahi chalta hai. And then, I said, but you are a woman. I mean, there are people who are fighting for feminism and women empowerment. And if you are only going to do this, so please go back to your homes. I'm sorry, you're already in your home. Go back to your family. Tell your daughters, tell whatever it is, that come what may, we are going to stand with you, because the cyberspace is really dirty. I am on the dark side of it, living, breathing that. I know what it is. Every night, I really know what the pain people are going through. And I'll tell you, the pain will become half if you can go and tell your daughters and sisters, no matter what, I will stand with you, rather than saying, तुमको बोला था इंटरनेट पे नहीं जाने को, तुमको बोला था इंस्टाग्राम पे नहीं जाने को. Please don't do all this emotional blackmail things and all that. It is not going to help, because without the cyberspace, you can't even grow.
Thanks. So Ritesh, just to sum up, this answer in particular, I would say that if people don't have enough evidence to even have that confidence to go before the police, or don't have enough evidence, if they need to even initiate a civil action against perhaps an ex-employee or another competitor company who has indulged in malpractices, I think the go-to person would be any cybercrime investigator, so that whatever evidence is available in the public domain can be looked into to fortify or to make the case better. Is that a correct way of putting it?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I didn't want to say all that because it would look that I'm doing a lot of tom-tom of myself, or I'm trying to sell myself. But no, we are the people who can actually get a lot of information from the public domain about if somebody is harassing you. We do social engineering. We do we scan through all the digital footprints and all. So yes, what she's saying is absolutely right. So you can always approach any cybercrime investigator, and they would be happy to help you with that.
Yeah, it's important because sometimes people don't know these other options. Every time we feel FIR needs to be registered, and that may not be an answer to all your problems. And that is where all these, I won't say alternative methods, but say parallel methods of
Yes.
Dispute redressal or way in which your problems can be solved. This can be one of the methods that can be looked into. So Ritesh, just to end this this wonderful session, which people have stayed here riveted, because though we've extended the session by another 30 minutes, hardly anyone has left the from the audience. I can see the number of participants still intact, which is an absolute success of this program and how you've kept them engaged. So if you can just end this with another one or two of your challenging cases where you had to do something more to overcome all the challenges, if you can share that with us.
Okay, you know what? Rather than a challenging case now, I'll just again share my screen, and I would like to actually show you how to create a password. Okay, you will say, come on, yeah, what is there in a password? It's a small letter, it's a capital letter, then it's a number, and then there is a, something like this, and then you make your password. So I think, this is something that's very important, because, we all know that the 8-character thing, there will be 8-character thing, but I'll tell you what, it is rubbish. It is completely rubbish, and it is completely bullshit. Because, even your 8-character complicated password, if required, can be hacked within 4 hours as such. So, that's using a technique called as a dictionary attack. Now, I am going to tell you that we as Indians have a lot of advantage of our mother tongue. And I guess many of you here would be Maharashtrians, because this is the Pune Rotary and all that. And so the best way to make a password. So firstly, password is out. What you need is a passphrase. You're able to see the screen, right?
Yes, Ritesh, we can see.
Okay. So what is a passphrase? So the password was, so let's say you would say that this is my name, and 1, 2, 3 would be like a password. Okay. But a passphrase is, the password becomes, I am a great lawyer in Pune. So the whole thing is about making passphrases. Now, the thing is, instead, these are difficult to hack, and you don't have to bother whether it is 8-character or 9-character or whatever. Just make it a passphrase. Now, what we are going to do, we are also going to go one level above by making the passphrase in my mother tongue. Okay, like let's say I'm a Punjabi, I would make a phrase that I use in Punjabi. Of course, we Punjabis use a lot of गाली, so मेरे password में तो गालियां ही रहने वाली है. किसी को ऐसा डालना है हिंदी में कि गांव में हरियाली है. Now this is a passphrase. Now here what you can do is your gaon can become G @ okay, capital O N. May is small. Now हरियाली में आपको जैसा करना है आप कीजिए, है में आपको जो करना है करिए, make it capital, किसी को बड़ा कीजिए, किसी को छोटा कीजिए, add some numbers if you want. So गांव में हरियाली है, the N sounds like 9 also because no and no hai. So you know, so I have a number also, so I can add more numbers. The capital O also becomes 0 for me over here. Now this is my password, gaon mein haryali hai. Is it difficult to remember? Not at all. Now I take a separator like a hashtag and I say FB, which means this is my password or this is my passphrase for Facebook. I take another one and maybe I just put IG. This is now my passphrase for Instagram. I say NB, net banking. This is my password for net banking or for my HDFC, or let's say I put Axis Bank, or I put OB, online banking. So the thing is, what I'm doing is the way we always wanted like different passwords. They should be complicated. You know, so here we have a password that is quite complicated, that is, and it is different for different ones. And what do you need to remember? You don't need to write it down also. So all that you need to remember is the first part. गाँव में हरियाली है. आपको कोई गाना पसंद है? शीला की जवानी, मुन्नी का बुढ़ापा. You can make it with that also. शीला की जवानी ऊपर नीचे कीजिए hashtag something something and just make a passphrase out of it. So pick up a song, your old time songs, Mohammad Rafi, Talat Aziz, or whoever, or the new ones, and work out with this. More importantly, make sure that it is in your mother tongue. Because, you know, if I try to type, let's say THUR, you will say, हाँ, he's going to type Thursday. लेकिन अगर मैं गांव का GAO, कोई सोचेगा नहीं कि मैं हिंदी में मतलब क्या. So, you know, जो shoulder surfing बोलते हैं, somebody standing behind and trying to guess, he won't be able to guess. So you know, this was something I felt would be like really useful to all of you. And the last thing also I would want to say is read a book called as Stoned, Shamed and Depressed. You will really come to know what all is happening. Like, it's not my book, you know, I was reading it. So Social Dilemma as a movie, something that you would, a documentary that you should watch. And Stoned, Shamed and Depressed is a book that you should like really read. It is an amazing book. It actually shows you real life cases, not only in the cyber world, but even in the schools and colleges and in their houses, what all is happening to the teens and tweens. So if you are having any teens and tweens, make sure to read this book.
Thanks a ton, Ritesh. I mean, my thank you is not enough. We have the chat box is flooded with messages thanking you and you know, congratulating you on how brilliant this session was. And there have been some real takeaways, and I'm sure our audience is now better prepared to be safe in cyberspace. You also have touched upon topics of you know, teenage safety and keeping children safe online, and that is going to be our last session. Which is on 4th October, and after that we have quickly, if someone can just tell me what the next date is. We have that session on keeping children safe online, and we are going to have experts, Nirali Bhatia, who is a cyber psychologist, who will be coming in. She also has this amazing and vast experience on handling cases relating to teens. The better half of Ritesh Bhatia. So we are looking forward to her session too.
How you know it's
4th
a better
October
only?
and 20th October.
4th October and 20th
4th
October.
October. Yes, 4th October is the next session.
So participants, please note down the date. You'll find this information on our RCPGB Facebook page, and you'll get the registration links over there. Don't miss out. These are going to be very important sessions. One on cyber warfare. We have Nigel Jones and Anand Deshpande. One is from the Cranfield University Defense Academy, UK. He's a senior lecturer over there. And Anand Deshpande is the director at MasterCard on privacy. So all about cyber warfare, sabotage, and spying. And especially now, we all know about the India-China how the apps are getting banned and what really is the thought behind it. And the last session would be on children's safety, which is a topic which is dear to all our hearts. Ritesh, we invite you to also join these two sessions. You're part of the Rotary Club Pune Gandhi Bhavan family, and
so much.
we invite you to participate in both the sessions. Thank you once again. I think we're coming to the end of the session, and I hand it back to Ashwini or Vinda or Shashank. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Now I request our president
Ritesh,
Manish.
if you just give your email ID so I can put it in the chat, or if you want to share your email ID in the chat box, please.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yes, Ashwini, please.
Yes. Now I request President-elect Manish to give the vote of thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ritesh and Balsing. Actually, as Vaishali mentioned, everybody was glued to their seats for 1.5 hours. We keep hearing a lot of things about cyber security and what we should know. But even after what we thought we were knowing, today's session had so much content we never thought of. Thank you so much for such an insightful session. Especially thank Ritesh for tips which he gave towards the end. Those are really practical tips. I really like that software called Pause, which we should really implement it. So in movies and other real life, we have been thinking about the cops so far who are masculine, who protect us, but these are the cops of the future who are going to protect us. So thank you so much. I would like to thank Vaishali and whole organizing team for organizing such a relevant series of lectures. It is really nicely warmed up now after 2 sessions that we can see from the response. So thank you so much for organizing and taking all the efforts to make it such a successful and inviting the speakers of such a repute. I would like to also thank audience who have been so curious, interesting, and stayed interested till the end. They participated by asking a lot of questions. So we look forward to see you again in the next session. So if you like the session, please spread the word and encourage your friends and social circles to attend in next session in more numbers. So see you all in the next session. Yeah. Bye.
Hello.
Yes.
Ritesh, it's a very eye-opening session.
Hello, President Shashank. You can.
Yes. Meeting is adjourned. The core peoples will wait. The rest, please leave the meeting. Thank you.